Hi everyone, this is Ellie Mae with Swift Creek Customs, and today I have a tutorial for you that's going to cover several things. My daughter asked me if I could put her drawing onto a hoodie or a t-shirt, so I'm going to take this from the Procreate app. I'm going to open it in Leonardo Design Studio, so I'm going to show you how you can open a PNG at high quality in the Leonardo Design Studio software. I am going to ungroup it and I'm going to enlarge part of the design. Then I'm going to show you how to set it up with a print and cut, doing an offset around that. I'm going to be using Siser EasyColor DTV. Love this product. And I'm going to be putting it onto a sweatshirt for her to be able to wear. We are going to be using the Siser Juliet, but this tutorial can also be done with Siser Romeo, as all of the Juliet tutorials can be done as well. So I'm going to walk step by step. We're also going to cover in depth exactly where you need to set your blade up for starting your print and cut. This has to be one of the biggest questions that I get, because it is one of the major differences between a craft cutting machine and the Siser machine. It is also one reason that there is very, very precise cutting on the Siser machine. If you have it set up properly, you are going to get excellent results with the Siser machines and the print and cut. So let's take a look. We're going to jump over into the Siser Leonardo Design Studio software and get started. Jump. Now we are over in the Siser Leonardo Design Studio software. I am going to be using a file that my daughter drew in Procreate, and I have saved that to my computer. I sent it to myself, saved it to my computer. Check the links in the description below for more on using Procreate with your Siser software. I'm going to come up here to File, Open, and I'm going to select this file that's all combined. Now, when I had her create this, I told her and showed her how to create on different layers in Procreate. So I had the ability, if I needed to separate this out. I am going to show you, and I'm going to pack as much information into this video as I can. So I'm going to show you how I'm going to use this PNG file, and I'm going to alter the bear and make him larger in this file. So I'm going to click on that one and choose Open, and then you have two different options. So this is about the fourth time I've recorded this video. Yes, fourth time. Because each time I find, first time it was complete user error. I forgot to show the offset, which is what the whole point of the video was. The other two times I actually used this background image, which works. There are multiple ways you can do something in the Siser Leonardo Design Studio software. I am going to use that footage in another video and do a new episode of Will It Work? So stay tuned for that, and it'll be linked in the description below as soon as it's ready. But it works. It's just you have a few additional steps, and I highly encourage that you watch that and stay tuned on the YouTube channel, because it is going to be something that most users will encounter at some time in their course of working with Leonardo Design Studio. So I do think it's important information, but I found a more efficient way. So I'm going to import this as a print and cut at 300 dpi. So I want it to come in at the highest resolution it was saved at. I'm going to choose Next, and every file that you open, especially JPEG and PNG files, are going to vary, because every single photo you open is different. It can have different colors, it can have different gradients, it can have different resolution. You want to try to work with the highest resolution images possible. If you're working with a low resolution image that was saved for internet quality, you may not get a good trace, because JPEG and PNG files are made up of pixels, and that is what software sees, is pixels. So it's going to trace those pixels. Now, she drew this with a black outline. Black is always your best trace option. So it's going to yield your best results with a high resolution image. I usually start with all of the defaults and see what is going to happen. If it doesn't work for you, you can come back to these windows and start playing with things. For now, I'm going to choose Next. It gives me my bold blue lines around my design. I'm going to zoom in here so you guys can see this a little bit better on the screen. Blue lines around my design show exactly where it is going to trace. If I uncheck Include Holes, it's not going to include the centers of those E's. And if I check include holes, which is exactly what I want, it's going to trace that. Now, if you have an image, I've seen several posted where it did not trace in the center of designs. That could mean your image is low resolution and it can't really see it. So test it, see what happens with your particular image. On the next screen, you do have the option to add a offset here. Now, this is where I ended up recording this video several times because there's several different ways you can build an offset. So this video is focused on the most efficient way. I am not going to use this, and I have a bonus part at the end of this video, so stay tuned for that, on why I didn't use this. So I'm going to click finished. I have these little dots, blue dots around my design where it's going to trace. Click finished. And when it comes onto my screen, you can see it's grayed out. The selection box of this design is outside of my registration boundaries. If I simply just grab it and move it inside, now I have my registration boundaries. If I move that over to the right again, I'll just point out here, when you have red registration marks, something is wrong. You need to fix it. Each image may be something different. This one is outside of the border over here. The registration marks are outside of the border to print. So here, now I'm going to show you a couple different things, and then I move that side outside. So the first one is, typically I use, and I will link in the description below, a basic step-by-step print and cut setup for using the registration marks at the full page size. Now, these default registration marks are what has been determined that work for almost all users worldwide, no matter what your printer is. So there are a wide variance of the equipment that is being used. Default registration marks for any cutting machine are always going to be your best and most successful and most accurate print and cut. So you have these default registration marks. Typically, this is what I use, but I'm going to show you something different in this video. The first thing I'm going to show you is that there is the option to change those and adjust those registration marks farther out. Now, first disclaimer here, it does not work for all users because everybody's equipment is different and it may not work for you. I'm going to show you how to change that under File and then Preferences. If I choose all preferences, I have this little option here that says small page marks. When I check it, you have these little exclamation. It's going to give you a warning. And I'm going to choose accept. Again, this is not going to work for all users. The only way to know is to test it. So I'm going to untoggle on the page marks to toggle them off, toggle them back on, and now you can see it has adjusted my page marks farther out on my page. I use letter size paper, or in this case, I'm using Siser EasyColor DTV, which actually technically is not letter size. So you would run into issues with this here. Now, some of the issues that you could run into is that, and why it doesn't work for all users, is that it prints too close to the edges of your page. I've seen comments on why I can't get more out of my page. Well, you are really close to the edges here. And if your paper doesn't feed properly, if it's twisted just a little bit, or if your registration marks were moved out farther and they printed on the edge of your page, it may not be successful and it's going to have a low success rate actually. And something to point out here is that this little caret or arrow at the bottom that designates your bottom left registration mark is actually showing off of my page completely, almost completely. It's on just a little tiny bit. Something to keep in mind here is that this is going to try to print, and it may print a little tiny dot of black ink on my page, but it's actually going to print the full caret in my machine, and that ink has to go somewhere. So my future prints may end up with black ink on it because this print is off my page. So that is something to think about. And your default marks are going to be your best success and most accurate cut. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to come back here to File, Preferences, All Preferences, and I'm going to turn off the small page marks and click Accept. For me, it is more beneficial to save my materials, print at the default registration marks, and get an accurate cut than spend all the time troubleshooting to try to figure out why it won't work at this little tiny margin. So I'm going to toggle the page marks off and back on, and you'll see that they reset to the defaults. Now, again, check the link in the description below for using the defaults with your step-by-step print and cut. In this video, I want to share with you that you don't have to use those defaults. I'm going to uncheck the page marks, and when I do that, you can see that this little marking space box opens up and I can actually adjust in there. So you can see that the registration marks get closer to my image, and I can adjust this. 0.492 inches is the default. I can actually come in here and type over that and put 0.1, and it's going to bring those registration marks even closer into my design. The other thing you don't have to do, you do not have to have your page, your design, in the bottom left corner of your page. Because of the way the Siser, Juliet, and Romeo work, you are in charge. Just like you're in charge of the software. You are in charge. You set the blade depth, and you set the blade, the tip of the blade, and I will go into more details at the machine on this, but you set the tip of the blade right here inside this bottom left registration mark. So since you are setting up the machine, you can have your print and cut at the top of your page if you want it to be there. So in this video, I'm going to show you how we can use these smaller page marks around our design. The first thing I want to do is I'm going to set up my design. So in this case, I want to keep the integrity of her drawing as much as possible, but I want to adjust it a little bit, and I'm going to adjust this so the bear is larger, and I'm going to move this P over so it's a little bit closer. So when I create an offset, it's going to be enclosed around the entire name. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to right click, I'm going to come down to paths, and I'm going to choose ungroup paths. Now what this does is it's now all of these pieces, I have my print of my bear, my cut line of my bear, and all of these pieces are individual pieces. So I'm going to hit Control Z to undo and go back, or you can use the undo up here in the top right corner. And then what I want to do is I'm going to left click and drag across my bear and my cut line so I have two things selected. You can see at the bottom here it tells me I have two items selected. I'm going to use this little corner bounding box, and I'm going to increase the size of this bear. Now I can do this because I've ungrouped it from the rest of the design. And I have a full page of the EasyColor DTV, so I can utilize that for her sweatshirt. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you here on screen my P print out part and my cut line. I'm going to hit Control Z. I'm going to left click and select both the cut line and the print, and I'm going to just move this over here towards the letter A so it's a little more condensed. So I'm still maintaining the integrity of this design, but I'm giving it a better chance for looking a little bit more eye appealing on the shirt, and it's making it so my offset doesn't look so off. I'm actually going to move this down here, adjust it as you want on the screen, and because we have control, we can adjust. These page marks are adjusted at a 0.100 spacing, and they adjust as I change this design. So what I'm going to do is, now that I have my design how I want it, I'm going to left click and drag across the entire design to select everything, and then I'm going to right click and choose group. Now my design functions all as one. And I'm going to leave it at this size for right now because I want to add an offset. I'm putting this onto a dark shirt, purple hoodie, and I want it to pop. I think a white offset with this EasyColor DTV is going to make it pop better than just adding it to the image. And I'll show you in the other demos I recorded before, I got an excellent print and cut when it cut just around this design. You'll see a photo of that here in just a second. But I think the white is going to make it pop. So you're going to come down here to build an offset, and you're going to choose build contours. And then I'm going to choose print and cut logo. In the Will It Works video, you're going to see editable contour as an option. There's a few extra steps there, but in this one, I'm going to choose print and cut logo. And then I can come down here and I can choose offset amount, and I can increase that as much as I would like it to be. So I have this little tiny piece in here. I think I just want to go a little bit higher. So I get rid of some of those little itty bitty pieces. Now I do have two pieces here. That's okay. That's exactly what I'm going for in my design. You can choose to include holes, and then you can see there's all those little bits and pieces inside of there. That's not what I'm going for. So I'm going to choose uncheck that. And then I'm going to go ahead and apply. Now, when I do this as a print and cut logo, it's automatically going to turn this blue line. That will be my new cut line. So it is going to give me that white border around my design. So this would work. I'm using it for Siser EasyColor DTV, but it works also for sticker files as well. I'm going to choose apply. And then what you can see here is I now have this dark blue line around my design. And we can come in here and we can check this. So if I come over to the artboard, getting familiar with your layers panel, which I'll throw a link in the description below for a video on that, is a great option to do. So everything is currently grouped. If I come over here and I select this and I choose ungroup, now it's going to break that out. But what you can see here is that this blue dot means it's set to cut. So if I come up here to my send design, I cannot adjust anything on this screen because it's a print and cut. I'm actually going to cancel it because now that I have my entire design, let's group this all back together. I want to make this the size that I want. You can see those registration marks are adjusting as I go. Red means something is wrong. Something is outside the boundary. So that looks about right. And then I'm going to come up here to send design. You can't change anything because it's a print and cut. Everything needs to stay exactly where it's at. And I'm going to choose send. And then what we have on our screen is we have our printed artwork. So I'm going to send that to my printer. And then I'm going to choose the cut contours. And you can see that it is now going to cut my offset. So let's come back up here to the print artwork. And I'm going to send this to my printer, and then I will, I have a quick tip for you, and then I'll meet you over at Siser Juliet. So click on send to printer. I'm sending it through the rear tray on my printer and printing on the Siser EasyColor DTV at the regular printer setting. Now, as I mentioned, before we get over to the Siser Juliet machine, as I mentioned before, this is the fourth time I've recorded this video simply because I found a better way, or it was complete user error. The first time I didn't make my offset, which I told you in the intro I was going to do. The second and third time, I found new ways to do things that was more efficient. So watch for that video, but what I want to point out here is that in the next part of the video, I am still using the previous footage for the cut. The first part that you're going to see, and I want to explain this because it's not movie magic, so nothing went wrong, just user error. The first one you're going to see, my printed page has my test cuts, and I'm keeping that in the video because what I explain about where to put the blade and your test cuts is one of the most important parts of the process. And then the next sheet you'll see by magic is that it doesn't have the test cuts on the sheet. So before anybody makes a comment and points that out, I wanted to explain why. It's not movie magic. It wasn't because I did something wrong. Well, there was user error in there. But I'm going to show you here is a photo of all three of my print and cuts that I did in this entire filming process, which has taken me about 3 days, that all three of these cut out perfectly. Even though I messed up and didn't do the offset, the print was perfect. The cut was perfect. That's what I should have said. The cut around my print was perfect every single time. So now let's take a look at the Siser Juliet and the cutting process. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on my Siser Juliet. It has, who knows what I cut last time. I do have my blade. It's my vinyl blade, so I'm going to go with that. I have no idea what I was cutting, so I am going to make sure to do my test cuts. Test cuts are going to save you so much. So I have a high-tack Siser mat. I found that the DTV doesn't stick well to other mats due to the backing on it. I'm just going to peel off the protective sheet, and I'm going to place my Siser EasyColor DTV down here in the bottom. And I want to be careful. You want to make sure that your DTV is dry. And I notice it's off a little bit. That actually shouldn't make too much of a difference, but I'm going to just set myself up for success. And try to get it on as straight as possible. And it could be that the cut isn't as straight, but we're going to hope for the best here. There we go. It's a little bit off. Because of Siser's accuracy, I'm not too worried about it. Now, you want to make sure that it's completely stuck down. There's no bubbles. There's nothing in on your print cut. And you are going to set your blade, the tip of your blade, inside this registration mark right here. Not at the caret or arrow, not over here, not at the bottom of your mat. Right inside that bottom left registration mark before you get started. So I am going to send this in. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do test cuts. Now, the great part is I can adjust my test cut. I'm actually going to do a test cut, in the areas where my cut is not, because I want to set that up. And I want to make sure. So I'm going to load the front of my mat with the front of Juliet. And this left line can be used as a guideline. I'm going to hold that, and then I'm going to flip the lever in the back to secure my mat. Now, something I'll note is I do have this middle roller disengaged. The springs are off on it, so you will not see it roll on the mat. With a 12 by 12 mat, I don't find that I need that middle roller. So I am now going to perform test cuts. So I am going to come over here to the cut settings. And I am going to select Easy Weed. And they do have settings on the website. So it says a force of between 5 and 10. I don't know. This is a very well used blade, so I have no idea. So I'm actually just going to increase my force to a 10. And then I'm going to move my blade where I want it to do that test cut. So I'm going to just set it in a negative space around my design. Somewhere you could even do it along the bottom here, however you want to do that. So then I'm going to push the little t-shirt. Grab my weeding tool, move this out, and then I'm going to see how that cut. And it has a little bit of a drag there. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to increase my force just a little bit and then do another t-shirt. And this one is perfect. Perfect t-shirt. I can weed out that circle if I wanted to. I have dots all over. I have t-shirts and dots all over my studio. All over. Test cut, test cut, test cut. Then what I'm going to do is, remember I said you need to set the tip of your blade right here in this inside of this bottom left registration mark. One of the most important things for print and cut. So I'm going to set the tip of my blade right here. And then I am going to send this from the Leonardo Design Studio software. I want to point out here that that little play button is the repeat job button. Links in the description below. If you use that, it is going to repeat the last job that you successfully cut. Even if you've turned your machine off, even if you've unplugged your machine, it will repeat the last job instead of sending what I have from the Siser Leonardo Design Studio software. So unless you are doing the same project over and over again, do not use that play button. It is repeat job. So let's jump back over into the Leonardo Design Studio software and send this to cut. Now, once it is set up and ready to go on the Siser Juliet or Romeo machine, I'm going to come back over into the Siser Leonardo Design Studio software. I've already printed my page and done my test cuts. I'm going to click on Cutting Contours. And then since I set this up to cut with the machine settings on the touch screen, I'm going to check this little box. I want to use cutter settings, and I can go ahead and I can choose Send to Cutter. And we'll go back over to Siser Juliet. Now, like I mentioned before, this is actually the second time I cut this design. I'm still reusing the footage because I'm not going to continue to keep on printing the same design. My daughter only needs a couple shirts with the same design just for the video's sake. This is actually cutting out the outline, which is exactly what I want you to see. In this one, it does cut out little bits inside of that patches section. You don't really need that, but I'm just showing a quick glimpse into the process. And then when I weed this off here, then you can see that my offset is cut. And then these are the 3 that I did throughout the entire recording process. And I wanted to show a close-up. Even though I messed up and I didn't make my offset the very first time and it didn't cut an offset, it did an excellent job with the print and cut, and I can use this on a lighter colored shirt. So I'm just showing in there. You can't see, there's one little white patch on that C that's actually in the design. Then I heat pressed the DTV onto my hoodie, and here's a close-up look at it. It turned out fabulous. I've got one more tip for you. Okay, so there's one more way that I want to show you that you can accomplish the contour offset. There are multiple ways you can do things in the Siser Leonardo Design Studio program, as you've seen in this video. Everything needs to be told exactly what it should be doing, whether it's a cut line, whether it's a print line. I'm going to come up here to a new design tab. I'm going to choose File, Open, and we're going to work with that same exact file. Choose Print and Cut. And I am going to choose Next. When I bring this in, so I currently have the trace window. I can create an offset here. The reason I did not create the offset this way was because I knew I wanted to adjust this bear before I created my offset. I wanted to center him more under patches, and I wanted to do some adjusting to the design before I created my offset. So that is why I did it the way I did in the beginning of the video, but there is another way to do it. If you have your image and it is exactly how you want it, when you're in this trace panel or the creating cut contours, when you're opening a PNG file, you can click on this contour offset and increase that, and you can see that my blue lines are increasing. Now, if I zoom in here on this design and move up, if I enlarge that, you can see that this is going to overlap in an area. And for my particular design, that's not what I want. So depending on your file, you can see here, it has spaces in between that offset. The P and the A do not touch. So for my particular design, I needed to open it first and then create my contours or create my offset second, after I had adjusted the file and changed it how I wanted it to be. So you can create your contour, your offset, before you get your file to the design mat during the opening process. So I wanted to pop in and just show you that it is possible. It is not what I'm looking for. I'm going to exaggerate this a bit. So let's exaggerate it a lot. And then if I click Finish, now you can see here I have that. So It really depends on the file that you're working with. This may be what you wanted or would want. You want a large offset around your entire design, and that may work fine for some files. In my particular case, with the image that was drawn, I needed to do some adjusting to the file before I added my contours and my offset that it was around it. Now, that is a lot of information that I have packed into this video. Stay tuned for the Will It Work video that's going to be coming out shortly after this, and I will show you yet another way that you can make offsets around your design, or you can fix your problems. So stay tuned on the Swift Creek Customs YouTube channel. Make sure to like, subscribe, and click that bell for notifications of future content. If you have any questions, please leave those in the comments below, and we'll see what we can do. Thanks for joining me, and I hope you have a great day.